I'd like to call this meeting to order, the Borough of Swissville regular council meeting for November 1st, 2023 at 7:01 p.m. Let's go through our roll call. Ms. Alfonso Wells.
Here.
Mr. Miser.
Present.
Mr. Price cannot be with us this evening. Mr. Quinn.
Present.
Ms. Scales.
Here.
Ms. Stribling.
Present.
Mayor Swartzwelder.
Here.
Public comments. We have several individuals for public comment. I would like to go, I'm actually gonna do the two ARPA at the end, so that I can join those together. So let's begin with Mr. Kurt Colburn with the food pantry. Did you have a few words that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to come tonight to acknowledge and thank you for your consideration of the motion to provide some funding to the food bank. It comes at a good time. Our reserves have been somewhat depleted by COVID and inflation. We served over almost 100 people 2 weeks ago. We did about 80 people on Tuesday with the produce distribution, and we expect another 100 or so this Thursday. We have another distribution before Thanksgiving and a Thanksgiving special distribution. So a lot of folks think the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank provides all the food for free, which is not true. And our budget for food has about doubled in the last couple of years. We used to be about 400 or 500 a month, and we're at 800 or 1,000 every 2 weeks for food. So that, in addition to rent and utilities, which are pretty significant, given that we have a lot of refrigeration going on. So it's a wonderful proposal. I hope it goes through. We want to thank you for looking at it.
Great, thank you, Mr. Colburn. Let's move to Ms. Mary Miller for SEDCO, the church and Braddock Parklet.
That is actually also an ARPA thing, so do you want to go with the tree committee next?
Yes, sure, we can go to tree committee. Give Miller.
All right, real quick, just want to let you know, last weekend, we put 13 new trees in. 9 of them along Edgewood to replace busway trees that have been dying over the years. Had a pretty nice turnout. It was, I think there were probably 14, 15 volunteers. So good to see. We're gonna be collecting requests for next. Probably gonna try to apply again in the spring, but as of right now, it's got 2 requests. Happy new trees.
Wonderful.
I actually had a resident reach out to me and saw you out there working on Saturday and said they were so happy to see those being planted. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. All right, so now we'll enter into kind of this ARPA theme. Let's begin with Ms. Tracy Crombie Collins.
Hello all. As you know, I wear many hats in the community and I come tonight as a resident, a property and business owner. Regarding Section 4, Council Actions D, Donations and Contributions, there is a change of language for ARPA funds to be described as council discretionary funds, and I find that problematic. Changing the name doesn't change any of the requirements for this money. I am aware that the borough has satisfied the federal government requirements for the allotment, and the funds were designated as revenue loss / replacement. But to now say that these funds are discretionary does not seem accurate. I have concerns that most of the purposes up for voting are not within the scope of the discussed use and certainly not revenue loss or replacement. Many of the items have no documentation of need or details around the projects. The borough would not be able to proceed with a project without a deep investigation or bid, similar to the towing issue discussed over the last year and coming to vote tonight. What happens if the allotment isn't enough for a project and it can't be completed? Why would funding these items without the same level of documentation the borough would require be approved? My family has a business here and we work hard to keep the neighborhood clean, from trash, even that is not from the business. Property owners and tenants refusing to do the same should not be receiving funding in this type of manner. The same is true with sidewalk replacements. 2 items refer to hiring. Isn't there a process in place to confirm how a job is created in the borough? The allotment of funds would, at a $15 an hour rate, would be under 70 hours. What are the details around these jobs? What are the duties going to be? What about additional costs of benefits, insurance, etc.? I do find merit in most of the funding ideas, and they're all worthy causes. However, I ask council to delay voting on all the items until confirmation of appropriate ARPA spending and details on the projects are known. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crombie Collins. Just so council knows, I've been in conversation with a couple of residents, knew that there were going to be some comments tonight. We will, before we move into our actual actions, I was going to allow a little bit of time for us to deliberate and reflect on some of what has been shared. Ms. Swartzwelder, Brittany Swartzwelder, also has some comments about ARPA.
Did public comment also just make note to speak up? We're having a little hard time hearing through the live stream, so we could project.
Sure.
Thank you.
Brittany Swartzwelder, live on Hanover Street. After viewing last week's agenda meeting and the rapid fire information on ARPA spending, I'd like to address some of the issues council did not touch on. I thought that this historic funding would be used to improve Swissvale's own infrastructure. However, all of the items we voted on tonight are classified as donations. In the agenda meeting in June, it was outlined that these funds are to be used for community projects. Donations and community projects do not share a common definition. I feel that in the spirit of ARPA, this money should be used in the form of grants for projects. And as such, the use of these funds should be flushed out and tracked. There shouldn't be guesses or estimates. There should be real quotes and bids for each project for approval, as well as each project benefiting Swissvale residents, as also outlined in June's agenda meeting. For example, field improvements or dugouts for the Youth Baseball Association instead of purchasing food and uniforms. The single-use expenditures are only beneficial for a single day or season, and then what? How is that improving Swissvale in the long run? I think that allowing council to split the ARPA funds to tackle pet projects is a great opportunity for projects that have sat in the shadows over the years to be brought to light. But ultimately, this money is taxpayer dollars and should be treated as such. 3 top concerns on designating the funds are as follows. Number 1, donations to group to be used at their discretion. Shouldn't these funds have a specific use? For example, upgrading food pantry equipment versus just operating expenses. Number 2, funding for a celebration that's already in the annual budget and self-sustaining with over $12,000 in their operating account. Again, it is a single use of funds versus a project that will benefit the community long-term. Number 3, once funds are approved, how will processes be managed for projects? Will there be a bid process, timelines, and how will completion of projects be tracked? What documentation will be required before funding is made and after? I believe that all these ideas brought forth for voting tonight have good merit, but there's an obligation to spend time and effort to put these funds to their best use for community projects. And finally, as our own Ms. Sean Alfonso Wells said earlier this year, it's a duty of this council to be good stewards of our taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Swartzwelder. Ms. Miller, do you want to speak now on the Parklet/ARPA?
So, hi, I'm Mary Miller. I am the president of SEDCO this year. And as you all know, SEDCO has been before council for a year and a half, coming to you about the empty lot at the corner of Church and Braddock. And the project that was started by the Rotary initially came to council, got approval to have it made into a parklet. They raised some money, they purchased some things. SEDCO's been here trying to push that. In the process, we've done a lot of outreach to the public. We've done all of our due diligence. We brought estimates for what things could cost. We pared down what we were going to do so that it would meet what we felt the borough could afford. And so, you know, we are very grateful now that the borough is going to cover that. So we came up with an estimate of $19,000 and the bare minimum to get the sidewalk put in. So my question is, now that, according to what the agenda says, there's $31,000 there. What happens with that extra money? Is there gonna be a committee that's gonna decide what to do with that? Is Public Works just gonna decide what to do with that? Will Sedco and Rotary have anything to say about that? Or, you know, how will we know? How will the public know that that money, that extra money was spent on what it was? I mean, the money that we already, you know, had an estimate for, obviously, you know what that is. So I feel like there's a lot of open questions, and I agree with a lot of what they said, that there's really, like, I feel like we've done our due diligence, but I don't know what any of these other organizations or groups that are asking for funding or that are receiving funding. I don't know what they've done, and I don't know what your parameters are or what, you know, your deciding factors are as far as how you decide and what these groups have to provide you in return and what they have to provide to the citizens with them. So I guess that's my question.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Miller. And thank you everyone for your comments. I will speak directly to address Ms. Miller's questions about the park lids. 31,000 is right now on the agenda for allocating. On the agendas, were the agendas out there for everyone to grab? Under E1, the motion, so actually we had an updated bid for that. So we're at $20,440 is the bare minimum for all the concrete work for there at that point in time. Because when it was originally bid, there were some changes in terms of depth and whatnot, and then we took out, I believe at the Shade Tree Committee's request, a sidewalk the entire way around the tree, only around half of it so that it doesn't squelch that tree in the center. But when we talked about this months ago, there were a lot of other things on the docket, things like regrading certain areas, moving some of the shrubbery. I know I don't know if it was Sedco Rotary was going to reach out to a couple business owners about planting some perennials, whether that comes through. So I see the excess resources to be put in that park for other things like that, if there is desire for that. So again, I think I'm of the opinion that money is allocated for that park, and as long as there's money, if there are other things that Sedco Rotary wants to provide for those improvements, that there is space and some resources to do it. So we're not a year later coming back saying, oh, I wish we had another $2,000 to do X. So to specifically address that question, those are some updated info. Now, as for ARPA, I mean, I think this has been a piece of legislation, a situation that we've been dealing with for several years. We've had several attempts, and I think each time we're getting a little bit closer into how to spend this money. You know, I was talking, I think it was to Mr. Batchy this week of, there's a lot of documentaries that talk about how winning the lottery ruins your life. Right, because you've got all this money and it's like how to spend it. Who are my friends? Not that we're playing friends with this money, but the idea is we have this and there's so many options and it can be very difficult and there can be conflict and there can be trying to parse out how are we going to allocate all those resources. So I think we've been getting closer to this. We've been allocating some of it. But Ms. Swartzwelder had reached out to me earlier this week about some concerns as well. I encouraged her also to bring public comments. I took another look at some of these things, and actually through this, there items D3, D5, and D6 for various reasons that I can explain later. I'd actually going to be voting no on because I don't actually think that they abide by the policy that we voted on in June. So, Mr. Batchy and I put together the motion list all separate so that if there are things that we want to go forward, we can still do so. If there are things we say, no, we need to hit the pause button on, then we can do that as well. I will say, I had one more thought in there. Oh, I want to advocate also, for the food pantry. We heard from Mr. Colburn that their reserves are low. They would really benefit from this, especially in times of the holiday season. I know it's operating expenses and not for a specific quote or bit of goods, but as someone, and I know there's some other council members who have been there regularly, we see the families that come through in need of food and the way it supports those families. So again, that will be one that I will definitely be voting in favor of. I will pause now if there's other council members that want to speak or address or continue to deliberate some of what we've heard.
I think, yeah, I would just like to say, I appreciate the comments and I do understand the concerns, you know, this, to Chris's point, this has kind of been a, let's figure this out as we go, like, trying to, you know, initially it was, let's just talk together about what we can use this money for. And nobody could agree. Nobody could agree on, yeah, this is something that we're all gonna agree on. And so this allotment idea, you know, I certainly have been in favor of it, but I can understand the concerns of the community if people, if we're coming to you with these numbers and just saying, yeah, this is the number we want to throw at this organization, and there's no background info to them. There's no saying, here's what that money is going to be used for, and here's how it's going to benefit the community as a whole. So I think, you know, my concern if we start piecemealing it together tonight is what's the process then moving forward for other members of council when they want to bring their ideas. You know, if we kind of just cobble this together tonight and say, well, these ones we're not going to do, these ones we are going to do. I would be open, and people know I hate kicking the can down the road, but I would be open to taking a pause and saying, let's have something written out as to what this process is going to look like for when each member of council brings their proposals to the table. What are the required documents that come with it? So like, instead of just having a number and saying this is going to here, have documentation saying this is the project it's going to be used for. This is what the organization has asked for. Rather than just throwing numbers out in the dark. And you know, my only concerns last week during the discussion, and Brittany, I believe, mentioned it, you know, some of these, or it might have been Tracy, I apologize. Some of these staffing positions, if we're going to allocate money for a staff member, but we don't even know what are the requirements for the staff member, what is the salary for the staff member, how long will the staff member, and we're just setting money into buckets. Who knows when that's going to be used? What's the backup? What's the backup if that money doesn't get used? Where does it go? Does it go to the general fund? You know, so I just think we need to flesh this out more. I think the intention of the council is good. I think, Chris, your idea was excellent. But I do think it is our duty to the public for them to fully understand how it's going to be used and what processes we're following to make sure it's used responsibly.
So I join Chris and also Josh in the same sentiments that I'm very much appreciative of the feedback and the comments that were received because the intentions are very much pure. And so most of these that are on the agenda are ones that I brought forth, and this is based upon community feedback. Now, prior to me sitting and speaking with members who live here in Swissvale, and these are members who are basically frequent visitors of our food pantry and our food bank here in Swissvale. And unfortunately, you know, they were not brought to tonight's meeting so that they could share why they shared with me these specific needs. Because of course, far too often, when there is money that comes in Swissvale, these people who need the help the most are not getting it. And I have been approached by several individuals requesting that I vote to contribute money to the church parklet, to Power, to the initiative on Woodstock for the children, which has absolutely nothing to do with the needs that were brought forth to me by the people who live right here in Swissvale. And some of them have been born and raised in Swissvale. Many of them are Black. Many of them are minorities. Many of them suffer disabilities. And they feel like we don't care. That when there are opportunities to improve Swissvale, it's not improving these lives in Swissvale. And so, but I do understand your concern because I do believe that you're not the only one in this concern. And I'm very much grateful to the fact that you actually spoke up and you said something. Because at the very least, we are very much aware in terms of where, the concerns are as it relates to this money. For one, I'm concerned that, had I listened to those who came before me requesting where this money should go, if we would receive these comments today. I'm concerned about that, because then it sheds light on a bigger problem in terms of where our values are, as a community. I'm not stuck in the mud on anything, because the reason why these motions are before us today are because these are what the people conveyed to me in terms of what the needs are. So whether or not council approves it or denies it, I personally will not, take any sort of issue with it, but I want you guys to take issue and think about the people who need this help, who need Swissvale to actually be a Swissvale that works for all of Swissvale and not just some parts of Swissvale. I'm very much okay with joining Josh's idea, taking a pause and making sure we do have our ducks in a row as it relates to this. Because one thing I never want to encourage nor intentionally take a part in is, misusing funds or, approving the use of funds in an inappropriate way, one that's not very much transparent, well documented, so that it is very much clear in terms of how we were being stewards over funds that are supposed to be specifically for the community. I'm very much comfortable with tabling a lot of these. And I'm very much comfortable with just taking the entire $45,000 and just giving it to our local food pantry and food bank. Because I wonder if then there would be any issue with that. It's just going to these two resources that feed the community. But you guys have to let me know if you're okay with that, but I'm very much comfortable with tabling a lot of this and getting the appropriate paperwork, whatever's necessary, so that it is, well documented in terms of where these funds will go and how does that specifically have anything to do with Swissvale. I'm comfortable with that because that's where these ideas came from. That's where these amounts came from. And I'm very much comfortable with making sure we have that appropriate paperwork in place. But my goal has always been all of Swissvale, not some of Swissvale, and listening to the voices that are silenced and are not heard. And that are not here. And they're not here today, nor were they aware that this would be an opportunity maybe to talk about why there's a need for these things.
And I guess for some people, they wouldn't recognize the need for these particular people who may need this, and maybe time is of the essence. I decided to support the food pantry because I volunteer there often, I visit there often, and I see the quality of life of the people that come through there. So it was definitely, that was my main point. But however, I would not have even pushed the way I did until I wasn't approached regarding something else, because I wasn't going to give to that and I give to the people who are actually of the least of it. That's the reason why once we started doing the different suggestions last week, I wasn't even thinking along those lines, but We have to decide on whether or not, are we going to support the whole Swissvale? And are we going to decide to give to those individuals that are not always supported? I've seen where the baseball team and the children don't get the support that they need. So I am very transparent in being able to, you know, sit down and get the right numbers and talk to the individuals and bring it together. But, you know, we need to start thinking about the whole Swissvale as a whole, because I came on here to serve all the people, not just one demographic. So I do appreciate your feedback. However, my heart is always gonna side for the least of them, because that's why I'm here.
And I want to clarify some of my comments that I think there's a lot of really great, I mean, I think everybody said that there's great projects here. I think there's other reasons there's questions. The reason that I said 3, 5, and 6 specifically other than those three, I'm comfortable voting yes today. 3 and 6, which is Sisters and the Woodland Hills Black Student Union. The only reason, again, they're great opportunities, but our policy was, it says, the language was, funds must be used in a manner that directly benefits Swissvale residents. So it's a question of getting more information on those, because, you know, I mean, Sisters is an organization that is broader than just Swissvale. My understanding is that they're in the process of moving out of Swissvale. I don't know if that's accurate or not. You know, the Woodland Hills Black Student Union, you know, how many of our residents are part of that? You know, as you know, there's 14 or 12, I don't remember how many municipalities, well, 12 municipalities there. You know, 5 is a separate issue, which I know, I mean, that one we probably need to table from a legal perspective that we can talk about if we get there, just of whether they're nonprofit or for-profit and some of those kinds of questions. But the rest, I mean, I personally am okay with, because as we went through that community survey that was done 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago, you know, the top things that people wanted were paving, which we covered. We allocated money a few months ago to that. I mean, the library, it's on here. Vacant lots, especially Church Street Parklet, it's on here. Sidewalk repair, on here. Community garden, on here. Youth activities, on here. I mean, that's 6 of the top 8 options. And so I'm comfortable with this. And I know there are some questions of like, how are we going to pay for an attendance? And this is not answering that. All it is us taking $1,000 for each of those and allocating it to the 2024 budget, so that Mr. Batchy here can figure out how to use that money to go towards that project. So if people don't want to do it, or if you want to pull things off, I mean, that's what these meetings are for. But I just wanted to clarify some of my comments earlier.
So, yeah, so to clarify further, I am not speaking to any single one of these items saying it's a bad use of funds or a good use of funds, but I do agree with the comment that I think having a process in place for documentation, a fallback plan for if that money is not used for that process, so that it's completely understood what the process is for these dollars, other than just, I want it to go to this. Okay, so what happens if, you know, they say we don't want that, or we want to use it for something else? Do we take the funding back? Where does that funding go then? That information is not fleshed out. And I can understand hesitancy on the part of residents hearing, well, what's the plan if this doesn't work? So that's why I would be in favor of at least us having some sort of documented process saying, if funds are not used within, you know, however much time, they will go to this. Just so there's a process in place, so that it's not just so much discretionary, as Ms. Crombie Collins said, you know, that it's less discretionary and more, everybody is following the same process, the same policy across the board.
And I'm in favor of that as well. I believe that with this, I do think there needs to be a process in place, and I do appreciate all your comments. I do have some initiatives on here as well, and just to kind of piggyback off of what Ms. Scale said, I don't feel bad about the choices I've made, because we do need to think of all of Swissvale. And I talked to these community members, and I was approached last month about some community members in their projects. I had no issue, but with the other organizations, when their voices are not heard, I want to stand on giving money towards those organizations, and those are the voices that are not heard. And I do think there needs to be a better process in place, like you said, with, you know, if they don't want to use it for this particular thing, or if there's a time allotment or whatever it may be. But as far as change where they go to. I'm not gonna do that, but I am in favor if we need to pause, and create that process. I'm definitely in favor of that.
And I'll say one more thing and I'll shut up, you guys. Just for an example of voices not being heard. What we're contributing to the food pantry. You wanna know why you guys know about it? Because Mr. Nelson Kirkson came to me initially. He told me what was happening with the food pantry and the fact that they were about to lose their space. And that the owner of that property had it up for sale, and what the owner was requesting, they didn't have. And so my response to Mr. Kirksey at that time was like, okay, we gotta do something about this. None of you guys knew about that, but I knew I couldn't do that alone. So I told him, what you need to do is sign up for public comment. Told him how to do it. I said, you need to bring this to a public comment. I gave him Abigail Salisbury's office number. I gave him Senator Costa's office number. And I said, you also need to contact these two offices as well. He followed my instructions, and now it's an initiative we've all taken part in. That was a voice that you guys didn't know anything about. But I knew about it, and I knew that I couldn't do that alone. That those were the steps that needed to be taken so that we could save our local food pantry. That's just one of the many examples that unfortunately all these other initiatives, these people don't have the bandwidth to come up here and do all of that for. So, and just for clarity with Juneteenth, and this is more just so clarity, there is a budget for Juneteenth because I worked my behind off to raise that money. I raised it, but I will not be here next year. So the ability to continue and bring the money that was initially raised for Juneteenth, I'm not certain of. So the contributions that were allocated to Juneteenth, it's so that Juneteenth can continue on. And that is something for the community. And a lot of Black residents from Swissvale are excited that once they got something that is all about pride, that's all about the liberation of Black people, and it incorporates and includes Swissvale. Because a lot of those performers that are taking the stage are Black performers from Swissvale, but that costs money. It's not cheap. It's in the thousands to get that. And so that's why, even though we have a budget for Juneteenth, that budget is not enough. I had to spend
$3,000, right? So it's $3,000.
I had to spend hours,
way over.
weeks,
How much did we pay?
days to raise that money. And yeah,
So we paid close to $10,000 that we raised. We only got $3,000 from council. And we got $3,000 for Juneteenth, and we got $3,000 for Pride. And some of the stuff that we did with Pride was in kind. It wasn't even that we actually did the money for it. So you do make a good point with that, because that money it was $3,000. The event cost way over $10,000. And that's what people, some of them taking a cut, not all of them taking a cut in what they would get paid, but it was definitely something that cost a lot more than the $3,000. And I don't even think we were trying to ask for more than that, because we said we work hard to try to raise more money.
yeah.
But that's to your point on that one. I will also say that we were given two instructions, I thought, for the money, and one was that it should be transformational, because it's a once in a lifetime type of allotment of money, and so it should be transformational for our community. And then the second was that we wanted to be within the guidelines of what the transformation is that could take place. So I definitely, I haven't allotted much of my money yet. I don't think I've allotted anything yet, because stingy and I just like to really like look at things. I mean, I'm not a big spender. I like to really think about it. And so when they said transformational and you're an academic, you go into all kinds of things. I'm like, okay, it has to be transformational. And where's the biggest bang and how can I allot all of this? So I haven't really done that. I would say that there are, I don't know, a third of the things on here that we have discussed for a long time, not necessarily, it definitely over months. There are definitely things that we've discussed over months. And then some of the other things, I definitely see that we've discussed them maybe within the last 2 months, I would say, because some of them, you know, everybody's getting together, they're coming up with their ideas. I do believe that, you know, having a system in place so that people understand, because people, you know, to understand why it's going whatever. I do believe, though, that first and foremost, the money should be what I was told was going to be transformative, right? So let's see what the first transformational, right? That it should be something that should be outside of the regular whole hum of everything. But I agree with everything that was said. I definitely think you have to look at how the money, because otherwise you're not being a good fiduciary. Get that from the commercial, right? Yes, fiduciary. That means they have to take care of your money and not take care of theirs, right? So, you know, I do believe that some of these things we could probably put in a structure just to make sure we know what we're doing with it. I don't think anybody had any bad ideas. I think everybody on council had the things that they really wanted to make an impact on. And I'm actually amazed because I wasn't here when it was voted on, right? And I was just amazed at how many different ideas everybody had. And they were really good ideas. And everybody had different directions that I think benefit our community. So I would just say, once again, I think that at least a third to 2/3 of these things were things that we had already discussed before over time. But there is some structure that could probably, I mean, when you're coming up with these ideas, you're not necessarily thinking of all the nuts and bolts that go into it. So some of them we could probably, you know, sit down and pound out a couple of things. I don't think there's a problem with that at all.
Last thing I'll say, just because I've jotted down some thoughts here. So what my proposal would be if in the tabling would be to come up with a template, not something complex, like a single page template where for each thing you want to spend the money on, you would fill this out and it would include the documentation for the specific use of funds, any quotes received, comparison with other vendors, a timeline for when the funds will be used, contingency plans if funds are not used for documented purpose or within a documented time frame, any additional contingencies. So if it's something like, you know, you mentioned things like contingent on land getting acquired or things like that. A brief explanation on how this project benefits the greater community of Swissvale. And also, this is a separate thing, but just because I know we're getting timely here with a couple of council members, what to do if funds are not used by a specific council member before the end of their term, if it rolls over to another. So having that documented. And, you know, one of the things I've talked about as soon as this was introduced was having these things on the website. And I would be fully in favor of having this template, once it's been filled out by the council member, upload it to the website, let people go on, there, read what the validation, what the reasoning is, what the contingencies are, what the amount is, let the public see that. So then when we come to vote, it's not just throwing numbers out in the air. So what I would say is we still need to move forward on this quickly, but we table it, we come up with a template quickly. And well, Leanne, since you already brought these to us, fill out that template for your items and then bring it back so we can start moving them through.
Yeah, I love that.
So I'll say, Josh, you just volunteered yourself. I mean, honestly, like I've dealt with so many iterations of this ARPA policy that I'm kind of tapped out on it. Like, I feel like I've offered what I can offer, and to have someone else who might have different strengths to offer some of that structure. I'm okay tabling this. I'm one vote, but I would ask that we still vote on items 1 and 12, which is the food pantry, we've heard their need tonight. And 12, which is the Church Street Parklet, so that we could get that thing moving. I mean, if we don't vote on 12, then we cannot vote on E1, I would argue, which is the sidewalk.
My concern with us voting on 12 is, we just heard from Mary that, their estimated cost was 19,000. And this is well over what the cost is, and we really don't have a contingency plan or structure.
Yeah.
In terms of what is going to happen with that excess money.
The estimated cost was like 35,000. We decreased it to 19,000 as a bare bones just to get it moving. But Greg put an estimate together a year ago, and then he recycled it about 2 months ago, resent it to us, or maybe just to me. But it had all the 19,000 was the sidewalk, but there's a lot of other elements other than the sidewalk that we would add. So I would not be surprised for that 31,000 to be spent on re-landscaping, on doing some of those other things as well.
Can we do similar to what we're doing with these other things, at the very least, have something written out?
I mean, if that's what the wishes of council are, that's fine. I don't want to make the food pantry wait another month, especially with the holiday season coming up, which is why I advocated for that. And we've talked about this parklet for, I mean, this is one that we've been talking about for 3, 4, 5 months. And again, I think moving it personally, I just would like to see it going so that we can get this contract awarded, or whatever that motion would be for the contract, so that we're on that for spring, just to keep that process moving. That's my opinion.
I would say, I understand that, especially for things where there is a timely need, especially, the holiday season and the food pantries need. That I would be in favor of that. I would still say that we do this documentation for those items, even if we vote in favor of them tonight.
Sure.
Just so it's
Yes.
still clear that we're not gonna just say, well, the food pantry's not gonna follow this, but everyone else will.
Yeah.
I understand the timely need, and I'm fine with
That's fair.
that, but
You're just saying retroactively still do
Correct.
that, and I'm okay with that, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. So, we're good with 1 and 12, we'll do, and we'll table the rest, is that what I'm hearing?
do we need to make a formal motion?
Well, I mean, I'm getting a sense
Yeah.
if that's where people are comfortable, so I know the process.
I'm comfortable with one.
One, okay, just one?
One, and was tabling everything else.
Okay. So then, all right, okay,
Just before let me just ask Greg, is there anything on here that needs to have the profit release so that they can get started on something?
No, it's just if you table one for the parklet tonight, that'll push the project off till spring. Because it's getting too late in the year to pour concrete.
Yeah, because we had our first snow today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already today, but this just,
Well,
Locks us in.
yeah, he said we could do it this month, but
Would council be comfortable in moving forward with 12 if we only approve the stated amount in the contract amount? So that we're not approving anything more than what is a documented need currently?
My only concern is that, we're tabling everything else because we want to make sure we have the appropriate documentation.
well, we have
And we're,
documentation, is what
we're
Josh.
transparent with the community.
Right, and I am saying that process still should be followed for the parklet, but we've seen that documentation for the parklet, for the quotes. I think we've all seen that in our inboxes prior to tonight. And again, I'm not saying it's free from the policy, that documentation still needs to be done. But since we have something lined up with the contractor and we know the amount, I'm comfortable pushing that forward as long as the documentation is still completed and posted to the website.
So is the motion going to be amended from 31,000 to 19,000?
Which one?
No,
No,
the 20,440 from the contract motion, E number
E1.
1, where we have a contract with Gatos Construction for that amount
Oh,
for the concrete walkway. So I would propose that we change the amount from the 31,000 that was pledged down to just the 20,440 for this specific contract. And any other money that would be used for the parklet would have to go through the same process of, here's how it's gonna be used, here's the amount.
So, but if each council member is allotting a certain amount, how would that work out? Like, do we, since we're taking 10,000 off the table, then just divide that back? Like, how does that work?
Yes, I think we can figure that out. I'm not concerned about, I mean, that's already been pledged, and I think we could even, those council members can continue to kind of hold in a promissory note, if you will, that they're there in case for the next thing that gets bid, if you will.
Gotcha.
And that's what I'm talking about with like this contingency. So like, for instance, I think I pledged 5,000 for the parklet. If that's not a part of this 20,440, then I would draft up something with this template that I'm proposing that basically would say 5,000 for the parklet contingent on these uses by this date. And if not, you know.
I think Mayor can give us some clarity.
Can I just make one comment? As far as Setco and Rotary are concerned.
Yeah, can you come up so we can hear? Thank
As
you.
far as, Setco and Rotary are concerned, we are really just pushing to get this project done. The borough actually owns that property. The borough's the one that's gonna have to fill out any information that's needed or justify, you know, what the costs are. We're okay either way, as long as, you know, we have assurances that that project is gonna get done. So,
Yeah.
So whether it gets done now or in the spring, you guys are fine with it?
as long as it gets done, I mean, I think that's the main point. I mean, we're not providing you with any additional information because we don't own the property.
To be clear, concrete work is expensive and you wanna lock it in at the price it is right this minute. I mean, just that would be the only thing I would say about that, because that has gone up. And it has gone up over time quickly. So if we could just lock that in and get that done, that would be wonderful. It's not like, you know, that we documented all over the place. Left and right. And I think that the documentation has been in place for at least 2 years, because not the specific price we got now, but it has been something that we've discussed for the last 2 years, yeah.
So is that why there's a difference between the 19,000 they estimated and this 20,440?
Yeah.
The difference is because what Mr. Gatus quoted was not the correct thickness of concrete, and also there was not wire mesh in there, so I had him go back and requote it. And when I was down there meeting with them, we also found that on our property, there's one 5-foot by 5-foot slab of concrete right on Church Street, right before the adjacent property. It's cracked right down the center and starting to buckle, so I asked them to add that in bid. Because we already have all new sidewalk around 95% of it. So I had asked them to add that one piece in and then put the correct thickness. It's supposed to be 5 inches rather than 4. So that's what accounted for the increase.
And taking out that
Okay.
one portion around the
Right,
tree,
yeah, take out.
attached to the tree.
Okay, that gives me clarity.
So what I'm hearing is we're gonna table basically D with the exception of 1 and 12 we would amend to be 440.
Yep.
So Mr. Hosa, do I have to, when we come to it, we're not there yet, we're still back here, but when we come to it, do we have to do that individually, or can we make a motion to table items D 2 through 11 and 13 through 16?
Yes, as long as everybody agrees, you can do a blanket motion to table the remainder. You don't have to do them specifically, individually.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I will just say, to put my little bow on top of it, I will do that template. And I will
Great.
have documentation along with it for the instructions for filling it out. Sarah, I volunteer to work with you on how to post it to the website.
Get it done.
I'm on it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Comments, thanks
Public
for the
comment.
support here. All right, let's move on to our action items, which are not these donations and contributions yet. We're under 4A, so this is minutes. If we could have a motion to approve minutes of,
I move to approve the minutes of the September 27th, 2023 council agenda meeting and the October 4th, 2023 council meeting.
Second,
any conversation or discussion on this? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Sorry, that caught me off guard. I was not usually there's that like delay I do. All of a sudden it was here. Okay, let's move on to item B, finance.
I move to approve the Borough of Swissvale paid bills in the amount of, oh God, what is that? $1,127,948.84.
Second,
Motion's on the table. Any conversation?
as Miss Alfonso Wells says, we gotta pay
There
our
it
bill.
is. I was waiting.
There we go.
Trouble with the amount since I never have that much in my bank account.
Oh, all right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, move on to C, personnel. We've got three, fire motions.
I move to approve the appointment of Robert Fry as a full-time shift commander in the Swissvale Fire Department, effective immediately with wages and benefits as prescribed in a collective bargaining agreement between the IAFF Local 1680 and Swissvale Borough.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I'll just say in general, we, as the fire committee met with all these candidates and, everyone was very impressive and I think, the council was or the committee was unanimous in their support for these decisions, so.
And my understanding, I was not part of the interview. My understanding, I mean, Robert Fry currently works for us as an engineer, and this would basically be a promotion.
Yes,
Uh,
yeah, he's one of our, when we made the engineers last year, he was one of the original engineers and he's getting promoted with the vacancy in the shift commander. So he's going full-time, just taking a promotion, and the other two are going from part-time to full-time.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's why we have three vacancies. It was really just two, but because one's being promoted, now there's an extra engineer vacancy, so that's why there'll be two there. So, great. Any other comments about this? All in favor of appointing Mr. Fry? Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, let's move down to the first engineer.
I move to approve the appointment of Zachary Cummings as a full-time engineer in the Swissvale Fire Department, effective immediately with wages and benefits as prescribed in the collective bargaining agreement between IAFF Local 1680 and Swissvale Borough.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, got one more fire.
I move to approve the appointment of Anthony Lewis as a full-time engineer in the Swissvale Fire Department, effective January 1st, 2024, with wages and benefits as prescribed in the collective bargaining agreement between IAFF Local 1680 and Swissvale Borough.
Second.
All right, any discussion? And this one is delayed until the beginning of the year?
Yes, because he has a work commitment that he has to continue until the end of the summer.
As long as fire department's okay with that? Great. Any other comments? We didn't vote yet. All in favor? All in favor of hiring Mr. Lewis, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Okay, this is
I move to approve resolution 2325, confirming the separation of employment of John McCalday from the Swissvale Police Department effective October 2nd, 2023.
Second.
any discussion?
I just want to point out, it is a personnel matter. There really should not be any public discussion on this with this termination.
All right, so no discussion on this. All right, let's take the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Okay, so Mr. Hosa, when we get here, we'll do one. Can I do 112 and table the rest?
Can I just
Yes.
ask one thing?
Yeah.
What's the difference between the pantry and the food bank?
So the food pantry is the one that is operating on Noble Street.
Right.
The Reach Up Food Bank is a nonprofit. It's basically the nonprofit arm of Union Baptist Church. So it's a separate food pantry that we have in the community.
So they're both food pantries.
They're both food pantries.
And,
Yes.
and Thanksgiving is coming up,
Thanksgiving is.
and we are meeting after Thanksgiving or before thing or whatever.
We are meeting after Thanksgiving.
Can we please include that in there? I think people might need food before Thanksgiving. Isn't that something that the food bank does?
I would imagine. So I'm not as familiar with that. food bank,
Right, Ms. Scales, can you, is there an immediate need for that funding for Reach Up?
For this, okay, so I'm so sorry, because I was in and out of your statement. So Reach Up is, yes, it is another food bank in Swissvale. It is operated out of Union Baptist Church of Swissvale, located off of Collinwood Avenue.
No, but what I'm saying is like, they do need the money right now so that they can feed people for Thanksgiving, you think?
Yes, so, yes, because they operate in a similar capacity as the food pantry. So they have to buy the food, that food doesn't come for free. They do apply for grants and everything else similar to the food bank.
So I
to
just want to
basically
include
be able
that
to
one
serve.
in with the other one, because that's an immediate need type of thing.
Yes.
that I
All right.
think-
I would be in favor of that, and
Exactly.
still filling out the templates, filling out the documentation.
Sure. All right. So, 1, 7, and 12 we'll vote on. So how would you suggest that I go about this?
So you can begin with what you're taking action on.
Okay.
You can, do motions for 1, 7, and 12,
The amended 12, but yeah.
the amended 12. And then a blanket motion, to table the remainder of the items under section D.
Okay.
Do we have to read 12 initially as posted on the agenda and then amend it, or can we immediately go forward with the amendment?
Yes, I would read it, as it was posted on the agenda initially.
Thanks. All right, so let's go with 1.
I move to approve the donation of $12,750 of council discretionary funds, is that what we're calling it? Okay, to the Swissville Food Pantry.
Second.
Second.
And there's a third and a fourth, and maybe a fifth there. Okay. Any
People.
discussion on it?
Yeah, feed the community.
All right, let's vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Let's move up down to 7.
I move to approve the donation of $1,000 of council discretionary funds to the Reach Up Food Bank.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Ms. Alfonso Wells, thank you for pointing that one out as well.
We gotta feed the people, but if I'm gonna be giving, I give a donation to PNC Bank, and they do the coats for the kids, and they also do the turkey dinner. And if I can do that, then this is such a small thing to do, to make sure someone's not hungry.
All right, let's vote. All in favor of approving motion 7 as read, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. All right, let's go with 12.
I move to allocate $31,000 of council discretionary funds to the Church Street Parklet.
Second.
Someone want to move an amendment?
Oh,
I
wait,
move
we
to
gotta
amend the
amend.
amend
Let
no, don't you have to vote on it
let
first?
Fred amend.
Oh, Fred.
Yeah. I move to amend, action 12 to $20,440 of council discretionary funds to the Church Street Parklet.
Second.
Okay, so we're good.
Yep.
All right, any more further conversation? All right, let's vote. All in favor of approving the amended motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So, motion carries. Now we want to table the remaining, if someone wants to make a motion to table the remaining motions under section D.
I move to,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I move to table the remaining items under section D until further documentation is received and items are posted to the website.
Second.
There you go.
Okay.
Weldon, give it to Weldon.
Sure. Any
Yes.
more discussion on that? Great. All in favor of approving
I don't know
that
why I'm
motion,
excited to table that.
please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion carries, that tabling. Let's move down to E, contracts.
I move to approve a contract with Gatos Construction in the amount of $20,440 for the installation of a concrete walkway at the Church Street Parklet, repair of a damaged sidewalk adjacent to the parklet, and installation of footers for the benches and trash cans.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor of approving the motion as read, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Let's move to
Yes, they can pour the concrete.
F,
Yes.
resolution.
I move to approve resolution 23-24, authorizing the submission of a grant application to the local share account program for funding to purchase and renovate a property for the Swissville Food Pantry.
Second.
All right, any discussion on this? Okay. And this is, we're not buying anything at the stage, we're just applying. This gives us permission to apply for the grant through the LSA. All in favor of approving resolution 23-24, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, let's move on to our reports. Our first report is our COG report, Ms. Scales.
I am going to hand it over to Ms. Angela Strickling.
Hi, so we did meet, virtual on last Thursday, October 26, 2023. We did not have a forum because we didn't have enough people. So we did just go over some, information regarding our, next up and coming meeting, which will be held on November 30th. We're looking for locations to have that meeting. So that'll be, coming up once she decides on where we want to have the location at. We also talked about the follow-up to what your question was regarding the diversity. And she said they couldn't find anybody to actually want to do the program. However, there is a class on November 14th, which I can send to you. And that's from 8:30 to 10:30. It's called the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. And it's at the DoubleTree at the Hilton Hotel in the Roeville, 101 Mall Boulevard. Secondly, we talked about the code enforcement. The Turner Park will be piloting and code enforcement intern program through LGA. The current next managers meeting for the COG will be on October 3rd, in the Roeville Community Park. And pretty much that's all we went over, and that's the report.
Thank you, Ms. Dribbling. Any questions for her? All right, let's move on to item B, Connect report, Ms. Alfonso Wells.
Yes, Connect has severed its relationship, amicably severed its relationship with the University of Pittsburgh and is now its own 501c3, I believe they call it. And they are now up and running and operating. They now have a new board of advisors, and it is going well. I mean, I think that as an organization, it has done fantastic things. And they have been working with FIRE. They've been working with the LEAD project, all things that we have been doing. We're still waiting for them to distribute and find the workers for the digital project that we'll be doing here because we were first in line. I wonder why. And we just received a grant from the Posner Foundation. This was a grant I was telling Greg about, and thank you very, very much, Greg, for working on that and giving me some numbers I had asked you about. Not Swissvale, Connect got a $50,000 grant for food waste solutions. This is what I was talking about, composting solutions and different types of things that you can do in your home and doing a pilot project. Very excited about that. And we are on the forefront. So we got some in-kind donations from all of the different municipalities that are participating, and we're able to get the $50,000. So that should be coming up soon. We'll see what happens with that. And they continue to do different and wonderful things in the community. Once again, there are tons of meetings that everybody is more than welcome to attend. It doesn't just have to be me, and I've seen almost everybody at something at some point. And some of you I've even seen in a Zoom call, and just like looking up, and I'm like, oh, here's our mayor. Where did she come from? So it's always exciting. These are the types of connections that we make that connect us to all of the other municipalities that are around us, and make us stronger as we build things together. So that is where we are at currently.
Do you have any update on the pilot program that we were supposed to be taking place in with having staff that would help digitize records and different things like that? Has there been any?
They're still getting I think they were consumed with the amicable separation. Sure. And so they're going to be getting some more like grad students and undergrad students to work on that. And then they'll be sending one our way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Alfonso Wells? Okay. Item C, Building Committee report. Mr. Price is here tonight, but Mr. Batchy is going to fill us in a bit on the building.
Yes, thank you. The demolition is behind schedule. The asbestos abatement contractor mobilized last week and actually began work on Monday. So they did start the asbestos abatement. They're looking at a 5 to 6 week project for the abatement, and the contractor provided us a schedule today saying they could be completed by December 15th is what their goal is. which is about 2 weeks past the deadline that we had given them. In talking with Core Architects, their proposed bid date right now to put the borough building construction out for bid is December 4th, with the bid opening of January 11th, 2024, and bid award date by council of February 7th, 2024. So hopefully by about April 1st, maybe we're breaking ground and have a groundbreaking and be under construction. Miss Ansel and myself also did attend a couple sessions with the Get Solar program through Connect on getting solar panels installed on the building. The building will not have solar panels in the design, but everything is there for them. There's conduit from the roof down to the electrical room, there's areas reserved for the electrical panels for future solar. We're trying to get the funding through the Get Solar program and other avenues so that maybe we can add this on even before the building's open. So that's where we're at with the building.
Any questions for Mr. Bakshi?
Thank you for your efforts in doing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just to clarify Mr. Batch's comments about solar, the intention was we want solar, but we knew we couldn't afford it right out of the gate. And so the building was designed to be able to retrofit solar. Well, I guess you would retrofit, but
Yeah, actually, just to add the panels later,
Yeah.
everything we need will already be there.
Yeah.
But there's about $10,000 worth of materials to put into the building rather than go in and cut holes in the roof, in a brand new roof in a year or two. So we're trying to be proactive and
so once we get that funding, we can just drop those
drop
panels
the
on there.
panels on, run all the wiring, do all the electricals.
But it'd be great if we had the funding before the building's open, like you said.
Yeah.
To be
Right.
clear, I fought so hard for the solar panels, I wanted solar panels so bad, but there was just no money. And no matter what we cut, we still weren't cutting enough to have solar panels. So instead of only having half a building, I let it go and Greg has so kindly worked on alternate methods to get the money for the solar panels, so.
Great. So, all right, the only thing I have is I was at the library today. They have a community conversation coming up next Thursday, a week from tomorrow at 5 p.m. at their lower level. If you register by November 7th at the front desk or call the library, there'll be pizza served. But this is just an opportunity to meet with their architects. They actually are not going with Core anymore. I didn't realize that. They have a new architect firm, and so this is an opportunity for the community or school district members of all ages. I was talking to a librarian today that invited me to bring my teenage daughter or, to that meeting to hear so the architects can hear how kids use the space as well. So that'll be 5 o'clock, Thursday, November 9th. Ms. Hans, I don't know, did the library reach out to you at all? We should get this on the website too, or on Facebook, or both. So, all right, you can just have that. That's all I've got. Item 5E, Mayor's Report, Ms. Swartzwelder.
Thank you, President Ansel. I just want to thank everyone who participated in this year's Halloween parade. It was a huge success. The day was beautiful. We had over 150 participants. The Woodland Hills High School band was fantastic. They dressed and they had so much fun. If you haven't caught the videos on Facebook, please take a look. Thank you, Ms. Ansel, for all the hard work you did videoing everything. It was a lovely day and kids participated, walked to Dixon. They got treats from our volunteers, and then they went through the farmers market and got treats from the farmers market vendors. So it was a lovely day. Thank you, everybody, and all the volunteers. It was our 30th Halloween parade in Swissville. So it's it's a great event. So thank you for that. November 11th, just a reminder, is our Veterans Breakfast at the Swissville Presbyterian Church. SEDCO and the borough will be hosting that, and it's from 8:30 to 10:30. And if anybody has not RSVP, please do so. And all veterans can bring a guest, and it's a free breakfast, and it's going to be a lovely event. So we'd like to see everyone. December 2nd is our Night of Lights celebration. This year, we're doing a little different. We're gonna have a vendors market from 4 to 7 at the Swissvale Fire Department. And Santa will come and light the tree at 6. We'll have lots of activities for the kids, hopefully some dance troops and some extra things just to celebrate our Plus Bicentennial year. And just a reminder, we fall back on Sunday, but we get an extra hour's sleep, so don't forget don't forget to change your clocks. And also Tuesday is election day. You have a voice and a vote, use it. And that's my report. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the Borough Manager's report. Mr. Bakshi?
Thanks, sir. For council's knowledge and so the public knows this, next month we may be voting on the contract with firefighters. We've started negotiating that earlier in the year. We have I've meeting with the fire committee on Monday, for a couple other issues. I'll discuss this with them, get their feedback on it, whether they want to move forward to council at this time with what we tentatively agreed upon. So then in chronological order, a couple things going on. Friday, there's fish fry at the fire department. I figured I'd say it since Mike doesn't have a report tonight, from 11 to 7 this Friday, fish department at the fire department. The borough building will be closed on Friday, the 10th for Veterans Day. It's a holiday. There will be trash and recycling collection on schedule on Friday, the 10th though, but there will be no leaf collection that day. And then lastly, our annual budget presentation will be on Monday, November 13th at 6:30 p.m. That will be via Zoom. For council members, we are going to meet at 6 p.m. for personnel issues, basically to finalize the raises in the budget. So we will be meeting at 6 o'clock via Zoom, and then the public presentation starts at 6:30 for the budget. And we're on the 13th, yeah. We are going to do it a little bit different this year. We're not going through every line item. Basically, we're going to look at what drives the budget and what causes increases in the budget and how we're able to cover it with increased revenues. It'll be a slightly different presentation. It's not going to be the long, boring presentation of, we buy pencils out of this line item, we buy this, we buy that. So we're just going to hit the topics. We're not looking at what we have right now is a balanced budget. That the finance committee's seen, we're not looking at any tax or fee increases. Then the budget will be advertised November 16th for a 10-day period for public comment period, and council will be on track to approve the budget at the December meeting.
And once that is published, it'll be available for the public's.
It'll be available to the public on on November 16th.
Yeah.
And also for the council members who are running for office after the election, I'll send a copy of the budget to everyone that's running. So if you have any input, if you have any comments, questions, please get it to me before the budget meeting, and then we can address it.
It's easier probably than reopening.
Well, yeah, because the council on an election year, council can reopen the budget up until February 15th. They can make, anyone on council can make a motion to open it. So it's better business just to bring the council members in, the new council members, and work on the budget together.
Because no one wants to read that over again. I can tell you. I had to sit through this meeting already, so it's like a double pleasure of getting to listen to it again in the second iteration.
I'll shorten it up for Paul.
All right, anything else, Mr. Bakshi? Any questions for Mr. Bakshi? All right, let's move on to the borough's engineers report. Mr. Ziskow.
Mr. President, I just have one confirmation to what I reported last month. The borough officially received the Alcoasand Grove grant in the amount of $216,716 to be exact, which is 85% of the total project cost. And that is the maximum grant you can receive from the borough.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your work in that.
Thank you.
And just to remind, remind me, I think the public as well, but this is kind of phase one of the stormwater separation project, which is boring underneath, getting drainage underneath the railroad tracks towards the Monongahela.
That's correct.
Water.
It actually is our commitment for that sewer shed, under the consent order.
Yeah.
Pennsylvania DEP.
Great. All right, any questions for Mr. Ziskow? All right, let's move on to the Water Authority report. Ms. Tracy Crombie Collins.
Changing hands. This is the Wilkinsburg Pennsylvania Water Authority Board meeting of October 24th overview for the Swissvale Council. I was not available for the meeting and did not attend, so this report is based on the board's review package and a short conversation I had with management and some of the board members. Public comment was robust and included Speaker Representative Abigail Salisbury. The Customer Advisory Committee is in the planning stages. A customer assistance plan for payment of customer water bills only is being worked on, and a presentation is expected at the November board meeting. System upgrades continue. The Penvest lead line replacement phase 1 progress continues. Swissvale has one more line to be completed out of the 1,026 that have already been completed. The Penvest on my report says proposed grant phase 2. It is no longer proposed. It closed and settled on September 27th. The pre-construction meeting occurred on October 9th with the start date of November 6th. JetJack will move one crew from phase 1 to phase 2. Swissvale customers returned 254 letters of the 200 needed from the 400 sent. Asphalt paving contract is going out for bid. The 2024 budget process has started. The Finance Committee, of which I am a member, met on October 26th. I was able to attend that meeting, and the full board will review it on November 9th, with voting expected taking place at the November 28th meeting. On an aside, be prepared for a rate increase.
Oh, Tracy, you're not giving bad news like that.
Other business was conducted. The agenda, engineers report, the report of management, and the previous meeting minutes are available online. There were 20 mainline breaks system-wide since the last board meeting. 0 were in Swissvale. There were 220 distribution service or repairs. 16 were in Swissvale. There is a chart in my report that is available at the office. The board also went into an executive session. If you have any or see any water issues, please contact WPJWA Customer Service 412-243-6200. And some additional items at last month's legislative meeting, Chief Wilhelm left. There was actually a fire call at Cary Furnace, and he came back before the meeting was over. And after, he asked me about fire or water service at Cary Furnace. So I followed up, and he and I had a couple of discussions about it. There are 8 fire hydrants that were put in Rankin, but because there is no demand for water, the water cannot be energized there. So Clyde's aware of it. There's no water on the Swissvale side, on the Cary Furnace Rivers of Steel side at all. There is, all the water lines have been laid, but without demand, there's an issue of keeping water safe, especially for Rankin residents. So it's not energized, and the fire department, I hope Officer Rolfe is also aware of that, but I did have several conversations with Chief Wilhelm. Yes.
Is energized like kind of when you prime the pump, so it's not primed? Is that what that means?
It's not full of water.
It's not full of water, yeah. The lines are there, but yeah. So to energize the lines and then the water not be used for hand washing and showering and flushing toilets, it can grow
That's it.
bad things that would work their way back up into the system. So to keep it energized, you'd have to flush about $10,000, 10,000 gallons of treated water. I think it's every week.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
And guess who doesn't want to pay for that? RIDC, Cary Furnace Committee, or the county. So until somebody decides they're gonna pay for flushing, or they get some tenants in there and the demand happens, that's where the water status. And then there was also an issue on Washington Street. It's due to a meter issue. There's one building owner's meter is in another building owner's basement. And that building owner apparently has some people there that won't allow the water authority in, so the police needed to be asked to help to gain entrance, or else all of the water would have to be turned off at the street, and it would have in fact impacted at least 3 buildings, not just the building that was getting shut off for non-payment of water. And this is a recurring problem. This happened 3 months ago. And it's happened again. So hopefully, there are new meters coming that are gonna be, that will replace these kind of things. These kind of things don't get built anymore. And we're going to get, better meters as they come electronic. They're going to be online. We can read them that way. I believe they can be shut off that way also. So it's something that infrastructure improvements are already on top of, but until things change, we could be talking about this again in 3 months. And that's my report. Any questions?
Was there any other, I know you weren't able to attend, was there any other discussion about the transferring over of account numbers? And I know that was hopefully going to be avoided for the whole online payment system.
I did not hear anybody say that specifically. It was not in any of the documentation, but I will confirm that.
I did get a postcard bill again, as usual. It hasn't changed for me. And, I did pay it through my PNC account. So,
No
hopefully they
fees. You
received
didn't
their
have to pay
money.
any fees.
You know, I have to do everything, so I don't pay that $3. That $3 too much for me. But yes, and so it seems like it went through without a problem, but I thought we were gonna be getting envelopes.
That is coming in December.
Okay.
It had originally been hoped for late fall, but December technically is late fall. That's what we are currently online for envelopes with full page statements in December. So I will have to confirm that question about the transparency of account number change for billing purposes or for online payment purposes.
I hope I see it, because now they trained me to look for a postcard. Now I have to train myself to look for the envelope and open it.
And I will say my next door neighbor got my postcard 2
Oh.
months ago, so
Stick together a lot.
yeah, it's problematic. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, solicitor's report, Mr. Hosa, do you have anything for us tonight?
Nothing to report at this time. Thank
Okay,
you.
sure. Thanks for joining us, and Mr. McKiernan instead. Announcements.
Yeah, so we have a representative of our congressional representative here.
Share a few words.
From Summer Lee.
I think. Allowed to.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, it's okay. I don't know what protocol is for that kind of thing. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody, I'm Brandon Forbes. I'm a district director for Congresswoman Summer Lee, Swissvale Zone. So nice to join you guys this evening. I just want to stop by, introduce myself, talk a little bit about our office. So for those who don't know, we do have a Eminence in Liberty. There's a way to, if you need help, if anybody needs help with any federal issue, whether that is Social Security, Medicare, IRS, passports, immigration, Alfonso Wells, and are well acquainted, utilizing some of our resources to help her with an immigration issue. So there's lots of things that our office can do. Also would like to get a meeting with you, Manager Machi, around ways that we can help support some of these initiatives, like even tonight hearing about the food pantry that's in need of some help, evidently capital project. Additionally, when it comes to looking at solar panels, there's a couple of organizations that we've met with and worked with that are trying to bring solar to municipalities. So that's a conversation that we could have. And also very nice to hear a robust and thoughtful approach to ARPA. Right, that's something that all of our municipalities are dealing with, especially as the timeline runs out to cover these funds. So I just want to applaud the community members who came, voice those ideas, and also your idea around sort of putting together a program. It's incredibly important and robust. So appreciate the transparency and concern for members of our community. But yeah, hopefully we can have we'd love to have a meeting to talk a little bit more with council members about ways that we can be supported. I just want to say, hey, also let you guys know we have our East Liberty location, but we're opening a Clareton office. We'll also be opening a Monroeville office. And for those that don't know, the district is 63 municipalities. Okay, so you thought a cog was a big thing. We have 4 cogs, I think, in our purview. One of those 63 municipalities is the entire city of Pittsburgh. So not that big deal. But so we're trying to make it to each of our municipalities and have a meeting with everybody, sort of hear their concerns with those. So I'll leave I'll stop now, but afterwards I'd love to leave my card with you guys and look forward to having some other meetings.
Thank you.
Any other announcements?
I just wanted to note, Chief Watson had mentioned it, the crime mapping tool, crimemapping.com is now live for the borough of Swissvale. So you can go to that website and see up-to-date crime reports for the borough. I just looked now, there's already things on there from 10/28, so it is being updated regularly. So big win there for the borough. I know we wanted to get that information out to the public, and thank you again to Chief Watson for his work on that.
Just so everybody knows, it's on the website. So if you go to the
Yes.
website, the police page, there's a link to crimemapping.com and instructions how to look at things up. So thank you, Mr.
Thank you too for making it happen.
Can I do a motion to adjourn?
Yes, please do.
What time is it?
8:27.
Motion to adjourn at 8:27.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Absolutely.